This is the Galaxy S24 Ultra. I've got to spend a week with Samsung's brand new AI smartphone and got to go hands-on with the S24 and the S24 Plus at Samsung's media event last week in Sydney. This is my full breakdown of everything you need to know about the Galaxy S24, S24 Plus, and the S24 Ultra. Let's go. Samsung have now officially announced the brand new Galaxy S24 range, integrated of course with Galaxy AI. As you can see, Samsung have given me a device to test out, and it's the S24 Ultra. Lucky me. And I'll give some more thoughts on it in coming videos, so make sure you subscribe. But today I'm going to break down the hands-on experience that I had last week at the media event in Sydney. To no surprise, Samsung launched the S24, S24 Plus, and the Galaxy S24 Ultra, all with new colours and a slightly more refined industrial design. Before we dive deep into the settings and the things that I found that I guarantee you no one is talking about, let's dive into some of the things you can expect to see from this device based on its specs. The battery capacities have got a nice little bump. The S24 and S24 Plus have got 4,000 and 4,900 respectively. The S24 Plus, just calling it early, is going to be a battery champion of the range. The Ultra, however, remains at the 5,000 mAh. But these battery numbers are effectively inconsequential because Samsung has updated the chipsets in all three of these new phones to be more powerful but also more efficient. You get the Exynos 2400 in the base and the Plus, at least here in Australia, with the Ultra getting the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 version inside it. The other improvement to performance is Samsung has included a much larger vapor chamber for cooling. The Ultra's vapor chamber is 1.9 times larger versus the S23 Ultra from last year, with the Plus and the base model also getting improvements in the size of the vapor chamber to improve the cooling for those two as well. So obviously you can expect the phones to be cooling you down in summer. That was just a bad joke. From a specs point of view, the thing I'm probably most excited by, and it's something that technically should have just always been, the base model Ultra, the 256GB version, is now finally, again, 12GB of RAM, which realistically should have always been the case. I have here the S20 Ultra, and its base model was 12GB of RAM. So really, there was no excuse for them dropping it, but it's nice to see it back. Right, that's enough in terms of the internal specs. Let's get into the phones themselves. I want to start with the design and the display, because while surface level it appears Samsung hasn't changed much, there is some really good refinements here that I think a lot of you will be excited by and will change the aesthetic and feel of the phone in your hand. The S24 and S24 Plus have completely flat sides and completely flat screens, so it's basically flat all round with the exception of the rounded corners that sort of round off the frame. Whereas last year's S23 and S23 Plus had slightly sort of curved aluminium frame, it's completely flat here. You can also see the Armor aluminium frame, which has been strengthened from last year, has a hollow cutout at the speaker for the bottom, which I'm yet to test properly, so look out for my future videos where I put that to the test, but it's definitely a design difference compared to what you saw last year with the holes cut out individually. The good thing is this frame color matches the color of the phone. The colors you've got here are a little bit more muted versus what you see on the Ultra, which we'll get to. But you've got the onyx black, you've got the grey, you've got the yellow, and you've got the violet. Quite nice colors. Myself personally, I really like the grey, but I can see where the violet might become a bit of a popular color. A bit disappointed they've ditched the phantom black. It's a bit more of a grey black, but Samsung have taken a bit of a different direction this year. The display on the base models are surrounded by very minimal bezels, and it's virtually all screen. It's very, very nice to look at. This will obviously please some people in the social media circles. The displays themselves have undergone a real makeover. All three models get a maximum peak brightness of 2600 nits. Wow. The thing is, you're not always going to see it at that level. It goes into high brightness mode at 1500 nits in that peak, and then can go up to 2600 in the right environment. But they're bright. They were bright enough before, but they're even brighter now. The great thing is with all three too is they all have 1 to 120 Hz adaptive refresh rate displays. So it's no longer the split where only the Ultra gets that. All three get it. And the only one of the three that doesn't have a higher resolution display is the base model, which is a 6.2 inch Full HD Plus, whereas the others get the Quad HD Plus respectively. What you're also going to notice is there's a new always on display. It's the first thing I saw. As soon as I walked into the media launch room, I saw it there and I went, that's new. And the first thing I also tried to do is unlock it from there, not remembering or not even thinking about it. Samsung have included an option to make your lock screen be dim and become your always on display. Definitely seen that somewhere before. You could turn this off in the settings. It's not permanent. There's multiple different options for always on display that you can toggle between. I like the previous way, but this does look quite nice. The displays have actually made this look really good. What I actually noticed as well is that Samsung told us at this media event that the displays have got a new sort of Gorilla Glass in front of it, which helped reduce the glare by up to 75%, which definitely was something I noticed. And in the unit that I've got taking it outdoors, I see that as well. It's a lot nicer to look at in direct sunlight, reducing the glare from lights and such. Whilst the displays on the base and the Plus are fairly similar to last year in terms of their design, the Ultra shifts completely back into the direction Samsung used to be in, which is it's now completely flat on the front. Some people are probably rejoicing, others maybe not, but you can't deny that it is definitely different to last year. And in my opinion, brings back what was great about the Note, which is a flat display to be more productive on. When you compare it to the Ultra from last year, you can see when they're flat on a table how the frame curvature is almost the same, but the back glass is completely different. Where the curvature in the Ultra last year and the glass sort of rounded up into the flatness, this year it rounds from the frame straight to flat. There is no sort of curvature of the glass to sort of match or meet it. It just goes flat. It definitely changes how it feels in the hand, absolutely. The bezels around the display are pretty minimal. Samsung have shrunk these down to be even and also barely there, which makes this phone have a really nice in-hand feel because it's a little bit shorter than last year, slightly wider, but the in-hand feel is nice. Largely in part too because Samsung has made the side rails titanium. And where last year's metal was a sort of glossy finish, this year is like a brushed titanium and it feels nice. You've got the matte finish of the glass and the matte finish of the titanium really makes for a nice in-hand experience. The titanium is what headlines the colorways for all of the Ultras this year as well. You've got titanium grey, which is the color that I have here. You've got titanium yellow, titanium violet, and titanium black. Samsung have really lent into that. The only thing you notice too is that the frame doesn't match the color of the phone. It stays that titanium finish. Surface level, there doesn't appear to be much of a design change from last year. And I'll forgive you for looking at this video and thinking you don't know what you're talking about. There's no changes. But Samsung have made refinements. This is not the same phone as last year. You've got a different finish on the frame. You've got a flatter display on the front and the back glass. You've got smaller bezels. You've got flat sides on the base and the Plus. There's differences here because at this point, what more can you really do to a normal slab smartphone? Okay, camera time. Before we get into Galaxy AI, which is obviously what headlines and what the teasers were all about before this product was launched, the cameras have certainly made a lot of noise when it comes to the leaking situation. I am going to do a full video breakdown because Samsung have slipped in some camera features and changed things that they haven't actively promoted, so make sure again subscribe for that because I'll deep dive into all the new camera features and the secret stuff that no one else will tell you. The S24 and S24 Plus keep the same hardware setup as last year. You've got the triple camera setup at the back, headlined by the ultra wide, the 50 megapixel main camera, and the 3x telephoto. No physical changes to the hardware there. Samsung have kept it the same. The S24 Ultra makes one massive change to its setup. It drops the 10 megapixel f4.9 aperture 10x telephoto lens and replaces it with a 50 megapixel f3.4 5x telephoto lens. You might be thinking doing this, Samsung have reduced the quality of their 10x. In my early testing so far, not the case whatsoever. On paper, it's got a better sensor. It's got 1.6 times larger pixel size and a bigger sensor to allow for more light and detail to be passed through it. The Ultra's cameras can also do a lot more. Samsung are quoting a quad telephoto system. Now there's a little bit of ambiguity there because the 2x and the 10x are digital crops from high resolution. What they're saying is it's optical quality. They're not saying it is optical 1-for-1, but because it's cropping into a middle part of the sensor, the 12 megapixel middle part, it's providing you with detail anyway. Samsung have history of this. They did it with the S20 Ultra, if you remember. The results were quite good. So I'm looking forward to testing this long term and seeing how it gets optimized over time as well. I compared the 5x on the S23 Ultra, which was just a crop of the 3x sensor, to the 5x of the S24 Ultra, and the S24 Ultra accounts for it comfortably, and you'd want it to. I am, again, going to do a full comparison between the S23 Ultra and the S24 Ultra from a camera level, but just quickly, at 10 times where the acid test really lies, I think that 10 times on the S24 Ultra absolutely holds up to the 10 times on the S23 Ultra. I've taken a couple of side-by-sides, and in a lot of cases, the detail is actually more retained on the S24 Ultra versus the S23. You be the judge. Samsung have also enabled the 50 megapixel option on the 5 times zoom. So you can take high resolution shots at that magnification level at 5 times. And again, it takes some really good photos. I really enjoy the detail that it can capture. And the fact that I can take zoom photos at high resolution as well, it makes the versatility of this camera system even better than what it was last year. Being that 50 megapixel lens, Samsung have also enabled 8K 30 FPS from this 5 times camera, meaning you have zoom range from 8K. Mental. Something I did notice though is that once you start recording in 8K, you cannot change lenses. So if you start in 1 times, it stays at 1 times. If you start in 5 times, you can only stay at 5 times. You can't swap between the two. I guess that's a processing thing. The 5 times camera can also be used for portrait photos, meaning you have 4 different magnification lenses for portrait shots. 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, and 5 times. Crazy. There is a host of camera mode changes that Samsung have made as well. Single take now can take photos with any of the lenses on the back. Portrait video also can be a 2 times crop instead of the 1 and 3 times. And I'm going to deep dive into all of that in another video because honestly, there is so much here that they've added. And I didn't think they could add more after what they did last year, but there's a lot more in here. Things like 4K 120 FPS that I'm going to showcase in a little bit more detail and depth another time. Very soon though, so not that long away. Overall, I'm actually really pleased with this 5 times camera. I think it gives me more range and flexibility than what I've had previously, especially when you consider that between 3 and 10 times, you effectively are going to take a detailed photo. Okay, the part you've been waiting for, Galaxy AI. Again, I want to deep dive into all of this and show you how to use it properly, because there's more to what I'm about to show you, and I didn't get a lot of time with everything due to it being only a 2-hour event. But it's pretty evident based on what I was hearing that Samsung is hinging its hopes of this phone release onto AI. Have they nailed it? Time will tell, but early signs are, yeah. At the press event, we got a mix of different demonstrations, things like generative edit in the gallery, things like live translate in the phone calls, and a lot of stuff to do with text and the keyboard that I just absolutely loved. I'm definitely going to start with things that resonated with me the most, and that's the AI that's inside Samsung Internet. Now, I'm not going to go too heavy into this because I didn't get to a lot of time with it, but basically Samsung have implemented a button in Samsung Internet's browser that will allow you to summarize web pages. You could be reading an article and it's too long. You can do basically the impact of TLDR, too long, didn't read, and you can summarize it and tell you exactly what was in the article without having to read the whole thing. Love it. Then you can copy that text into a notes file, and then you can also reformat it in Samsung Notes. Samsung have incorporated this level of AI right throughout the phone, and it's all done on the phone too. It's not actually utilizing cloud services, which is great. Samsung also has like transcribe features where you can actually transcribe meetings and then isolate speakers. Wild. One big function that got co-developed with Google is called Circle to Search. It was still in its early stages when we saw it just because of how early we got access to the phones, but it actually worked really well. The premise is that if you notice something on social media or on the internet that's an image and you want to find out what it is because there's no information on it under the image, you literally press down on the home button area, circle what it is you want to search, and Google will search it for you. It's that simple. There's a host of language and keyboard based AI as well that Samsung have incorporated. Stuff that allows you to retone text messages so you can send it in the right context. Translate features so you can have conversations via text message in third-party apps, even like WhatsApp, where you can actually conversate with someone in another language using your own native language, and it'll show you the language that you've sent and then also receive it back in your native language. Wild. This isn't even touching the photo editing that Samsung have incorporated into the gallery. The ability to edit a photo using its generative edit function means that if you take a photo too crooked, you can fix that and it'll fill in the gaps for you. Or if you want to move something in the photo, you can do that as well. There is so many more AI features too, and that means that this will be the place for all of your S24 coverage. So I've said it a few times in the video, but please hit that subscribe button and like this video, because this is where you'll want to be for all of the information that you can get about the Galaxy S24 series. Come follow me on my socials as well. I'll give some more in-depth thoughts on how I've been using the S24 Ultra since I've had it, and I'll see you in the next one. You!